I'll tell you when we're all live.
Yep.
You're live.
Good evening, everyone. This is a Franklin School Board meeting. The date is November 22nd, 2021. I call this meeting to order at 6:03. The meeting's being held at the Franklin High School cafeteria. If we could please stand for the salute of the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Colleen, was our meetings posted as is required?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is our public participation. During our public participation, anybody from the public that wishes to address the Franklin School Board about any topics may do so. I ask that you please keep your comments to a minimum of 3 minutes, and I give no more than 30 minutes to this session. We do also hold a second public participation at the end of the evening. For some reason, we're not able to get through the full first public participation after 30 minutes. At this time, I will open up to any public participation for the Franklin School Board. Yes, sir. If you just state your name, sir, and where you live, please.
Peter McLaughlin, I live on 150 View Street. I have some questions from Kathy Rago that she wanted answered. What is the procedure for approving new curriculum in the district?
All right. During public participation, this is when you can address it. The board is not required to answer the questions. If you have specific questions that you need addressed, then what you need to do is send those questions to Superintendent Legallo. Okay, and he will respond to the questions for you. But public participation for you to address the board's not required to answer the questions during it.
Okay. So this has to be sent to the superintendent?
Correct. Unless you've got a specific item that you want to address with the board, sir.
No, I just have questions.
Okay, and what you want to do is address those questions and send those questions to Superintendent Legallo.
Okay.
Do you have his email?
I could find it.
If not, he's right here, and he can write it down for you if you'd like.
Hey, Chairman Dow,
Yes,
can we at least allow him to read the questions?
we can. If he wants to read the questions, he can, but I just want him to make it clear, Paul, we're not required to answer the questions.
I understand.
So if you want to read the questions, sir, you may.
Okay. So the first one was, what is the procedure for approving new curriculum in the district? Who within the school district determines which curriculum to be used? Is the proposed curriculum reviewed by the superintendent, teachers, principals, student representatives, the school board, and more importantly, the parents? Who is the final group to approve any new curriculum before it is distributed to the schools? Is critical race theory curriculum being taught in our districts? Is the 1619 project theory curriculum being taught in our districts? And is gender theory curriculum being taught in our districts? LGBTQ, trans, more than 2 genders. Those were her questions, and I will send this to the superintendent.
All right. And he's going to come with his email for you, sir. And thank you for reading those questions.
Perfect, thank you.
Is there anything else, Mr. McLaughlin, you'd like to bring forward before the board? Was there anything else you'd like to bring forward?
That was it.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to address the school board this evening? Seeing none, I will close that portion of our meeting. I will now move on to agenda item 3, which is our recognitions. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Legallo for the first recognition.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Dow. So I am very excited to introduce the Franklin High School robotics team, led by Lida Guillot. So Lida, if you want to join. They won a very, very exciting award a couple weeks ago at the robotics competition. And, an interesting story to share as well. So
Battle of the Bay is in the Governor's Cup, the off-season
Thank you.
competitions that you can participate in for FIRST Robotics. Pretty much with FIRST Robotics, they literally hand us a box, probably 4 times the size of the one near Colleen, and say, here you go, build a robot, here's what we want it to do. They have to plan it, they need to implement it, problem solve, they need to budget, write business plans, they need to be able to self-sustain themselves. They do get support from administration and from the SAU with transportation, and we will be coming soon to them, to all of you, because we just found out what our 2 meets are for this year, and we're gonna have to head up to Maine, so we'll come to you later for approval. This year, the students had a new award that was implemented this year, and it was, what do they call it? The Big Bad Battle of the Bay Award. And basically, it oversaw the whole competition. It was a fundamentally sound robot. It was attitude of the team, their respect for themselves and others. It was looking for something above and beyond that made them stand out from the other 34 teams. And this year, Franklin Robotics, in addition to their regular outreach with Karma Corner and such, they decided that as a part of the safety campaign that's mandatory to FIRST, that they were going to focus on mental health awareness for teens. So passing around are some of the sample kits that every team participating for this season against Franklin High School will receive. It gives them information on teen mental health, the problem, signs and signals to look at, how you can reach out to a student or a peer if you're a teenager, if you think someone's at risk. And yes, our Office for School Wellness, we worked with Barb Slayton, who was amazing with getting items for us to utilize in the packets. Basically, FIRST was blown away that these kids were so positive, and we are actually right now a team of 5. We have some quarantined kids. They were blown away with how little a team, but with such a big impact that they were having, and how they didn't think of a Band-Aid as first aid, or they didn't think of the robot pickup kit for spills, that they really were looking at the whole child and bigger than the normal picture. So they were pretty impressed.
And we got to kick butt with Superintendent Legallo's children's team as well.
So if you don't know how robotics works, you have 24 to 36 teams that compete, and then at the end, the teams merge, 2 or 3 teams get together in what's called an alliance. So I was excited to hear when I arrived to see my son and the Franklin team that they were aligned together on the same team.
As he shows up,
And my daughter as well, thank you, my daughter as well,
now
we
he
just
shows
joined
up
the
with
team.
one T-shirt and another sweatshirt, so you can cheer for both.
So when I got there, I was not conflicted at all. I was rooting for my son and daughter's team and for Franklin all together. And although they didn't win, when I heard about them, meaning Franklin winning this wonderful award, I just couldn't wait to bring them here tonight to share with you guys.
And I forgot, in addition to actually building this monster, they actually, every team gets the same thing. This robot that they had built was supposed to pick balls up, shoot them into a target. It was supposed to spin a wheel, which we never mastered, and that's okay. There were teams that didn't do every task. And this robot actually had to be able to drop, pick up an arm, and lift itself off the ground at a 12-foot high spot. And ours were phenomenal. Like, they were one of a half dozen teams that actually could climb this year. So they do all of the programming, coding, and debugging of these robots also. So it's
The
a
other
pretty
thing that
intense
was
program.
wonderful too was that the event was held at Prospect Mountain High School, which our own Deb Brown
is my employer.
as her employer, so she was
But I
there.
was there with my Franklin t-shirt.
Yes, she was.
She took a bunch of wonderful photos to share as well in the morning, so it was just great.
Like I said, we've got tons of support. I mean, I've got Dan Clark out there fixing trailers and putting batteries in the van when it doesn't start at a competition, and I have other teams jump harding us. It was good. So, it's just all around, right down to, I had, Robin, I'm sorry, it's too late in my day, coming down to make sure that we were on systems and that our computers were all functional. It's all encompassing from school and community. It's a good thing.
And our new robotics room over there.
Yes, and Ms. Charette has endowed that space to us, so we have a secure locked space so that things aren't being moved or tampered with, which unfortunately was an issue lately.
And I can say that Lena's been doing this for a few years, and we finally got her a trailer a couple years ago to kind of help out with the transportation of our robot and stuff. But I can tell you that, this is one of many. We have a very young robotics team that we've only, it's only been around for a few years now. It's a very young team, but our robotics team has really stepped up to the challenge year after year and come out with a lot of hardware over this many years for their work that they do at every competition, and some of the things that they go above and beyond on with Karma Corner and continuing to that and everything. So, it's to say that we may have a small team, but we have a pretty mighty team in the meantime. So we have a very good robotics, and Lena's done a great job at leading
Baby
this.
steps, that's what my kids were doing, that's what we did. And I had, Jefferson writing last minute emergency checks because we had to have a registration check, or, hotels had to be paid for, and building season, in January, they say, here you go, here's this year's game. Build your robot, and they give you 6 weeks, beginning to end. Have your robot done. And I go, Jefferson, I know I don't have a PO, but I need these parts by tomorrow. And he goes, okay, bring it over here. It's just everybody pitches in. It's not just a Lita endeavor. I couldn't do it without the support of everybody else. And they're great kids, they work hard. And it's beyond the building. We have kids that are going on to college. We had one go to, where'd she go? LRCC, ended up with a $2,000 scholarship from First. Liz ended up with $4,000 from First and ended up in preferential upperclassmen housing. Liz did end up with a $40,000 a year scholarship. She opted not to take to a different school. The opportunities, what did they say to us? Was it $20 million a year goes unclaimed through First, in addition to everything they send out. So the opportunities for them to learn how to be part of a community, part of a group, part of the school, and our kids cannot participate if they're not academically appropriate to the sports standard. So if you're not passing your classes, if you are not appropriately behaved at school, you can't attend a function. So it's impressive. Both of these gentlemen have been with us since inception of the team. Pierre started as a middle schooler. Ricky's been here since the first year we started. So they work hard. We appreciate everybody's help.
Deb, you have a question?
Yeah, not a question,
Oh, a comment?
I just want to comment. One of the things that I took away from being at the event, the commissioner was there, this governor spoke on screen about the program. You had the president of the organization that was, that
Quite
spoke.
often in person as well.
Yep, they were in person. And as I walked around and took pictures of the kids, doing whatever they needed to do, whether they were on the computer, but it's not just their team, it's all teams help each other. And I got a great picture of one of the teams that was, helping them, explaining things to them. And everybody was so upbeat and excited about being there. And I was so proud of all of them.
Yeah, Pete might explain. They have a term that they've coined through First. It's called cooperation, and I really wish we had more of it in the school setting. You want to explain cooperation to them?
The idea of it, it was a word that was created by the late Woody Flowers, great professor and great great advocate for workplace cooperation, and cooperation is helping others despite the downfalls you may have. It's, you know, in the workplace, everybody in this room has to work together at some point. That's why you guys have this board together. You guys may not be in the same buildings, you guys may not have the same job. Superintendent doesn't do the same thing the principal does, but they gotta work together. And just because the principal's having a problem doesn't mean the superintendent can't be helping them out. It's not a matter of superiors and inferiors. It's not a matter of who's got the better equipment in our case and who doesn't. It's what you can do to help the next guy. You know, and that's important in the workforce. Everybody has to work together in the workforce as well. And you can't have a dealership without a service desk and the mechanics working together. Stuff would just fall apart. So that's the idea, is that we want to put those skills in place at a young age, so when they get to the workforce, they don't have to be taught that. Because how many times do you see that some kid, they go get their first job at Market Basket, they don't know how to work together with their coworkers, and they don't know how to work together with their peers at school. And so we try to instill that in the children at a young age, so we can all go out to the workforce and be ready to work instead of having to learn these things later.
Right. They also encompass, it also adds to the base of diversity. You can be an Asian middle-aged woman, you can be a white 70-year-old male, and you can be a child that has special needs. You can have your first in your class and your last in your class, which we actually had at one point. It doesn't matter. Everybody sees something differently. If you had a room full of 30-year-old men, you would not get the same input as you had more diversity. So this team may know how to do this well. That team may not know how to do it well. We actually taught another team how to build a climber at that event. So everybody willingly gives the knowledge and imparts what they know to the next guy so that they can use it and implement it, which we do. You know, we don't all go to school and sit back and say, hey, it would be nice to know why that works. But no, someone would tell you, you'd work at NASA, and someone would say, here's what we know already, here are the pieces, you build on that. So it's pretty much the same thing. Everybody has something they're good at, everybody has a skill, teach the next guy, and our mentors do that. They're all volunteers. Your mentors, we have a gentleman from Plymouth State who's phenomenal with these kids, and he told them, it's my job, I know how to do it, but what does he tell you exactly?
He just because he knows how to do something and he shows us how to do it doesn't mean we know how to do it. You got to figure it out for yourself. It's trial and error. And what he says, one of his favorite things to say would be that it's that he may know more than we do, but he's acquired that knowledge over a lifetime, 55 years. He didn't have the same stuff growing up that we did. We can learn twice as much as he can learn in those 55 years. All he has is experience. He has the knowledge and the experience, but we have more capacity as young adults to learn more than he does at 55. And so every generation can be smarter and smarter and learn more and more if we are applied and if we can actually be exposed to it, which is what FIRST is about. Not necessarily saying everyone has to be an engineer, exposing everyone to that so they can make their own choices.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. Keep up the great work, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you. He's got to get to basketball trial, sorry.
All right, are there any other recognitions to be brought forward this evening? Well, I have one. And I would like to recognize Jewel Finley again for Matilda, which was a phenomenal show, and all your students that participated in it. So thank you again for putting on another school district-wide outstanding show. I know there was a lot of people there each night, and I heard nothing but positive feedback, as we always do from the theater production. So thank you, Jewel, for continuing the theater program and with our students and everything, and putting on another great. I know you waited 2 years, I believe it was,
2 years for that one.
for that. So again, thank you, Jewel, and congratulations on another great show.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other recognitions to be brought forward this evening? Okay, Seeing none, I'll close that portion of my meeting, of the meeting. I will now move on to agenda item number 4, which is our approval of our prior board minutes for October 18th, 2021.
I move to approve the board minutes of October 18th, 2021.
Motion's been made by Paul to approve the minutes of October 18th, 2021. Do I have a second? Second by Delaney. Are there any discussion or corrections that need to be made? Go ahead, Cecile.
On page 3, under item 7, I think the basement of the former Knights of Columbus, I don't think isn't the Knights of Columbus do not own that building anymore or whatever,
Correct.
right? So,
believe so.
yeah, so this
The
is,
former Knights of Columbus. building.
Yep. and that's it.
Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Page 2, there was documents attached as part of the official minutes, they weren't attached. Number 2.
You got that, that's Colleen?
Page 2, number 2.
The emails, yeah.
Whatever they weren't attached to the minutes, as it states.
Isn't that at the office?
It says documents attached as part of these official minutes, but they're not here.
Yeah, those are the emails. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Are there any other corrections or changes? Okay, so all those in favor to approve the minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 5 is our Franklin High School Student Representative Report. Good evening.
Good evening. So my name is Andrew Jackman. I'm the current treasurer of the student council. I'm filling in for our president because she could not make it today. So right now we currently have a food drive ongoing, and all the proceeds are going to be donated to the Twin Rivers Food Bank and Bread and Roses. That will be running until December 15th. And we decided to make it a sort of competition between the grades. Whatever grade donates the most gets some points towards Winter Carnival when all is tallied up. And then for Veterans Day, we also all need cards that we then deliver to the local nursing homes in the area so they could give them to the veterans that they had, because we weren't able to actually enter the building ourselves. But we all got 5 or 6 notes that we all wrote ourselves to send to them. And that's about all we have going on right now. We have more planned for the future, but still figuring stuff out.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our high school representative, student representative? Thank you very much this evening for coming. And we're going to move on to agenda item 6, which is the presentations this evening. This evening we have a presentation of our Portrait of a Graduate update with Carissa. So Carissa, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, my presentation it's going to be this fancy thing, so it's not that fancy. This is just a community update for November, and we'll produce one of these for you every month. October, I don't know if you got October, it was circulated. We're organized around 6 sort of action steps in our action plan with the Barr Foundation, and they're here. So site visits to inspire, communicating our stories, the community advisory, reflecting our experiences, imagining together is the last one there. So we sent out an invitation for staff to apply for site visits, and those are due December 3rd, and then we will figure out who's going on those. We're going to go to Shelby County, Kentucky in February on February vacation, and the second one is to St. Paul, Minneapolis area. We're 3 schools there. We've asked staff first who wants to go, but we also are interested in inviting maybe a parent and student, or a couple parents and students. We are going to end up taking between 10 and 12 folks to these site visits. We'll leave on a Monday and be back Friday, something like that. We have to work on the plane tickets and all that stuff. We had a great day on November 17th, and we had a videographer from Granite River Studios come, and he did some interviews in the morning. He recorded the day and then did some interviews in the afternoon after it had happened with some teachers. And so we'll be working on those videos, and we'll have them out for you by January 2022. Community advisory, we've done a lot of work on that in terms of recruiting folks. So we should have our first meeting the week of December 6th. I'm just waiting on poll answers. Perhaps you all got an email. And if you haven't and you want to participate, just let Dan know, and we'll get that to you. Lots of great ideas came out of the 17th, but also in the evening I went to the Business and Professional Women's Dinner, and I presented to there, and some other ideas were generated there as well with the community members, so that will start. The goal of that really is to think about how can students learn with community. So I know that in the middle school, there's an idea, we have some funds to go with this too, but there's an idea to go on a field trip to the State House, but they want to do that again, and that's great. And how will they learn with community? So it's not just going to be teachers going to the State House with their students, but we'll find some community members who either are going to learn on the tour with students, or who can give the tour because they know about the State House from Franklin. So it's like learning with community kind of thing. So the community advisory is responsible for that. Last week on Monday, we took a group of students to the Elks Club for lunch. So we walked with them to the Elks Club. We had lunch there. Our student facilitator did a session with them, and they listened a little bit, about 5 or 10 minutes, to what the Elks does, so it was an introduction to their work, but also members from the Elks listened in on the conversations that the students were having, which is pretty interesting and eye-opening to hear the student perspective. And then on last week on the 17th last week was a big week. We went to Mojolaki, so the teachers had some time during the professional development day in their buildings, and then at 11 we moved up to Mojolaki, and we did 2 types of things. One was thinking about how school is organized. Like right now, the high school it's compartmentalized by subject area. So thinking about what if we didn't organize like that? What if school was organized differently and we didn't have subjects like math and English and social studies classes, but instead we had classes like zombies or Star Spangled Banner, the newspaper, those kinds of things. So we just did some play around that, like what would it look like? And then in the afternoon, we had some community members present to really think about how could the learning in the classroom be connected to the work that's being done in the community. So each presenter presented the work that they're doing, the different hats that they're playing. Candace Tucker has like a list of 20 things on her thing, so she was a great resource. But also, you know, Dan Darling was there and thinking about the Opera House and ideas that he had never thought about how to incorporate the Opera House into the work that's being done at the school. So there's a lot of collaborations and connections made there, and staff got to meet community members, which is a barrier, right? If we want to have students learn in community, teachers have to know who the community is, and not all the teachers know, so that was a good first step to getting community and teachers talking. And that community advisory is the next step. And that is the update for November.
Are there any questions for Carissa on Portrait of a Graduate? We did have a work meeting recently. We were able to review some of the data from our students and kind of work on some ideas on how we can kind of bridge the gap between our students and our faculty. There's some things there that, you know, that have come to light. So we're working on that because that's an important part of the Portrait of a Graduate. I know Superintendent Legallo has got a couple of ideas that he's working on to help with his staff. And I'll let Dan, if you want to touch a little bit on that, I'll let you touch on this. It's something you're in.
Yeah, so as we looked at all the feedback that we received from students and from community members and parents, one of the things that came to light was there's only a few of us in the district that have the ability to kind of go around to the classrooms in all 3 buildings and kind of see all the different things that are going on. So one of the things that I'm thinking about doing and starting up fairly soon here is for the ability for teachers to take some time to get out of their buildings and go to the middle school or go to the high school or go to the elementary school and kind of see what the colleagues are doing and what they're working on. I did this in my other district and it was pretty successful for teachers to kind of get out and see, you know, if you're a high school math teacher, when's the last time you had a chance to go into a kindergarten classroom? And I really think part of training, everybody should have to go into a kindergarten classroom for at least 15 minutes. Because 15 minutes in a kindergarten classroom will open up your eyes to a lot of things, for sure. But I also think it's important that middle school teachers get to see elementary, middle school gets to see high school gets to see middle. There's a lot of good things happen when teachers start to share ideas and see each other's strengths and weaknesses. And, you know, I think Jewel and I have that opportunity all the time, you know. But even the principals themselves only get to see their own buildings. They never get a chance to go and see what's happening in the other buildings. And the next speaker you're going to have is Dave Cole, and he gets a chance to go to all 3 buildings, and he gets to see tremendous stuff all the time. So, you know, that's something that we're going to probably be doing and pushing by the new year and try and make happen. You know, and we'll continue to think about ways for which we can make teaching not be so isolating, because teaching is isolating. And unless you open up each other's doors and you open up and have a kind of a collaborative environment, you know, we heard some feedback from students, and I think that's what Chairman Dow is referring to, that, you know, perhaps teachers would benefit from seeing some of the expertise of people next door to them and down the hall from them and in the floor below them and whatnot. So we're going to try and leverage that feedback that we received and try and open up these doors and have teachers get a real chance to get out of their own classrooms, get a chance to see their colleagues, and hopefully everybody grows from doing that. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing in the next month or so.
Thank you, Dan. And like I said, some of the ideas, some of the stuff that was on the data that the students represented, we're very fortunate we have a teacher representation from all 3 of the schools, so we kind of discussed on how we can gap this area to bring our students even closer to our teachers and everything. So that's something we're going to be working on, and you know, I'll keep you up to date on the progress of things, where we have monthly meetings, work meetings, so that I attend and I'm part of. So we'll do that. But the other thing is at the last city council meeting, we're going to, over the next month or 2, we've talked to Carissa. She's going to go in and kind of give a short presentation to our city council, so the city council's aware of what this Portrait of a Graduate is. They're aware that we have it, and they're aware that it's funded through the Borough Foundation, but what are we doing with it, and you know, what plans are we having, and what do we want to see at the end of this, in a year from now or 2 years from now, what do we want to see? So that was some of the questions the city council asked, so we're going to have Carissa go in the next, I don't know if it's
Next month.
Next month. So for the December meeting, and kind of give us a short presentation to them so that we're all together, because this is not just a school and parent, but it's a school, parent, community, and you know, we need to all work on this together to have the best Portrait of a Graduate. So this is some of the things that we worked at the work session. Are there any questions? All right. Thank you, Carissa. All right, our other presentation this evening, which we put off from last month, we have it on to this month, is our Technology Integrator Update, and that's with Robin and David Cole. So if you guys just want to give me your presentation.
First off, I want to actually recognize what he has done for the district since he started.
Come forward.
Can you come closer to the camera, please?
So I want to recognize Dave for what he's accomplished. We were in dire need of a technology integrator for a really long time. The tools that we have here for technology get lost in a hectic day and day-to-day schedules of our teachers. The position was designed to bring those tools into the classroom for the entire district. Whether it is new technology or current technology, nobody is going to use it if they don't learn how to when someone's not teaching them. From setting up Zoom meetings or just helping a newly hired teacher learn the ropes. And a good example of that is we had a teacher at the middle school who was considering not staying. They were drowning. And because of Dave, that teacher's probably going to stay now because they felt the help that they needed to get going. And more than just technology, because he's a teacher, he was actually able to help her with some of her teaching things as well. But figuring out electronic devices and current software, he's just been a savior in all of those areas. He's absorbed the position immediately, and he's become the go-to guy for our entire district. Hiring the technology integrator was a great idea, but the person running it is what brings it to life. I don't think we could have found anybody better than Dave to do this job. He's the best person, and everybody is able to relate with him. Dave has rapidly made his mark being a teacher, and now he's hitting the ground running in this new position. He has made it easier for so many staff members to do their job, including mine. He is able to take my techie talk and translate it into teacher talk, and that helps a lot. And Dave has already done more for our staff than anyone could have possibly hoped for. I know it was real important for him. He wants to make a difference somewhere. That was a big thing for him. Just so he knows, he's made a difference. He's made a difference in the entire district. So now I'm going to let him explain to you what he does and what his vision is.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for giving the opportunity today and tonight, because last month when I was on the agenda, I was sick and had to take care of myself. And thank you, Robin, for the kind words. That was flattering and a little embarrassing. But I honestly believe I've got the best job in our district. I've been a teacher. I work with all staff, all teachers, our administrators, our office staff throughout the district. I'm in and out of all 3 buildings constantly. And I'm really proud of our district, and I want to give teachers and staff and everybody what they need. So a big part of my job has been building rapport, building trust, getting to know teachers, getting to know what the situations are, what the needs are, and really understanding from that perspective. So that empathy piece is really huge. My background, I've been a classroom teacher for over 20 years. I've been a technology and integration and innovation coach for 5 years previous to this role. So I understand, and most recently for the last 2 years, I was a teacher in the classroom, math and science, grades 5 and 6. So I understand the teachers and where they're coming from. I've taught first grade all the way through 8th grade. I've worked with a lot of high school students as well. So I understand that piece. And I'm just as happy to go into a classroom and model a lesson, model a technology tool for teachers if they feel uncomfortable. I'll teach a lesson. Bring me in. I've gone into the elementary school and read books to the kids. And I've gone in and modeled technology tools. Even in the middle school, there was a fun one. Our last 2 staff meetings ago, I asked Ken to take a chance, and I said, can I model with you a technology tool that is underutilized in our district, that we pay for, that we sought out and paid for, and teachers just weren't quite sure how they might use it. And Ken was game. And we used that tool to deliver the entire agenda in an interactive way that had never been done in the middle school that I know of before. Ken loved it, I loved it, teachers loved it. It was very different, and teachers, the use of that tool shot up as a result of that. So just finding those opportunities is really powerful, I think. My first time into Paul Smith School this year, into the elementary school, I heard teachers left and right almost in tears, some of them literally in tears, saying students accessing the curriculum through the Chromebooks was a barrier. It was difficult. Letter recognition was a problem. Fluency, letter and word fluency. So as they're trying to put in their username and password, and they have one letter wrong, the P for Paul Smith School instead of the Q and the P, and they're in tears because they have to do the whole thing over again. Where students are losing learning time, teachers are losing teaching time because of just logging into the computer. And we found a solution. Robin came to me and said, there's this tool, do you know about Clever? And I said, yes. She's like, do you think we should go for it? I'm like, let's do it. And we use a tool where now students have a QR code. I showed Rebecca this just before coming out here, and I showed her how it works. First word out of her mouth was, clever. And I said, you're kidding, right? You know this is clever? She's like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, the tool is clever. That was just her description. It was perfect. But again, like trying to listen to teachers and see where those needs are, leverage the technology to deepen the student learning, have kids spending more time on task, more time learning, and fewer headaches and fewer frustrations, and letting those devices be an empowerment and a powerful teaching tool is really really important. A couple things I wanted to share. In the middle school, there's a lot of technology tools that teachers use for delivering curriculum. And Clever, another one of these things that Clever does, is the hard part of rostering. So creating rosters where teachers have to set up usernames and passwords and share those with students, and students have to remember multiple username logins, etc. Clever does all that for us, where students log in once into Clever, and then it's just a one-shot deal, just a one-click, and you're into these tools. So it's been a really great opportunity for teachers to say, wow, this just really speeds things up and takes a lot of the hard part out of using and setting up these tools. So that's been really nice. In high school, I got to work with the life skills classroom. We've got some of our special ed kids, and we had a teacher who was just really eager to try something and just go out on a limb and build a business to model for these students, to have them part of the entire process of building a website and making a menu and providing the service for the high school, coffees and muffins, and using a QR code to make it easy, because that's how we do things in the world. And the teacher and these students were eager and had no idea how to start. So I got to go in and just be part of this project from the ground up and help build that. It was just so exciting to see. And so, there's lots of things going on in all three of the schools, taking advantage of technology. And what I think is really important is the growth mindset. This is something I battle constantly, where I go into a classroom, work with a teacher, and the first thing the teacher says is, "Thank you for coming. I'm really bad with technology. I just have to apologize." And I said, "Whoa, wait a second. That's a fixed mindset. That means you're cutting yourself off from learning and not giving yourself the opportunity." Would you say the same thing if a student of yours said, "Oh, I hate math. I'm not good at math. I'm never good at math. I'll never be good at math"? We wouldn't accept that as teachers. No way. So I don't accept that from teachers when I hear that. So I said, switch the narrative in your mind. Switch what you say and say, "I find technology challenging, but I'm constantly working at it and I'm getting better all the time." And then that allows you to learn, it allows for that growth. And so a lot of my job also is kind of coaching the teachers who are coaching the students in opening up and having that growth mindset, so they can use that and be open to change and open to trying new things. So that's an important thing. Recently, we had some curriculum meetings with Jewel in working on vertical alignment. And a big key part of that was to brainstorm from elementary all the way through our high school, all the tools that we use to deliver that curriculum. Digital tools and non-digital tools. But as teachers started to see what was used in all three schools at different grade levels, eyes were open and like, wait a second, all kinds of collaboration started to happen, where math teachers in the high school are raving about a tool that middle school math teachers didn't even know about, even though it crosses over and middle school teachers should be using it. So I sent out a message, got a quote. They sent us for $250, we get a district license versus a building license here, and now our middle school teachers will have access to a tool that aligns vertically, and our students will be trained in a tool that they're going to be using in the high school. So there's just so many chances for synergy. You have to have the conversations, create the opportunities for the teachers to have those conversations. But I get to be a part of and kind of help guide that process, and it's a really satisfying part of the job. We're also currently working on a website redesign, and just from me working with those people who input information and try to manage our website and all the information, hearing the frustrations, we thought, why don't we redesign this and make it what we want? So I've been working with the developer of our website, and then with Dan and Jewel and all kinds of players on those who actually are managing our website here. And we've sent out a survey to parents and students and teachers and community members received that feedback, and now we're in the later stages of that redesign. And that's just fun, exciting work. Like, let's let it work for us. Like, let's make a tool that makes sense for us and our community so that we can get the most out of that. So those are some of the current projects that we're working on. I did want to share with you guys this. This is what, as Rebecca said, it's clever. Just because it's fun. This is something, these are Chromebooks that all students in our district get. And when students open up their Chromebook, all of them, they'll just get their basic login here. Middle and high school students use their username and password like they always have. But elementary school students have the new option, which is the QR code. And we will phase them out. We've had conversations with third grade classroom teachers to say, as the year goes on, we're going to phase them out of these because in fourth grade they won't have these, even though they want them. Any student in the middle school and high school, when they know that we're using these in the elementary, they say, I want one of those. I don't want to type all that in. I just want to get in. But it's quite fun. So they'll just click a little next button here, and I'll hold it up in a second here. So once they click the next button, all they have to do is click one button, the camera pops up, and they hold their QR code up, and you get a nice little feedback. It goes bring, and they're in. They don't have to enter any username, password. They're into their Chromebook. This is related to their Google account. It's personalized. Teachers keep those personal, and they've usually got a pocket chart for the younger grades, so students can keep those safe, or when it's time to use the Chromebooks, they'll pass those out to those students so they have those. But it's again, very clever, but most importantly is it increases drastically the time on task, the time spent learning and teaching, and not letting the technology be the barrier, but letting it be that gateway, that entryway into learning, to deepen that student learning. So anyway, I want to share a little bit about my role. I love it. This is still in the early stages because this position hasn't been in the district yet. A lot of it is just creating those beginning phases, where seeing where those biggest needs are and filling those gaps. And then I really look forward to kind of future phases where teachers are teaching other teachers. I'm a teacher, so I'm never somebody who goes in and just does it. The teacher says, hey, this isn't working for me, will you fix it? I'm like, that's not me. I may be IT, but I'm a teacher, and you wouldn't go and just do it for your student because you steal their learning. And I'm not going to do that for you. So you have to, we remember through clicking the process of how we got somewhere. And so I can model it for you, but then I'm going to make you do it so that you remember and have a better chance of remembering. So again, I've got a foot in each camp. I'm there with Robin and the IT team, and I'm in there in the classrooms with teachers, and I understand what, the whole big picture. So again, I think I've got the best job in the district, but that hopefully gives you guys a little picture of my role and where we are with that. So again, thank you for having the foresight to hire the position. And I did find out in this process that technology integrator is kind of an outdated term. In New Hampshire, it's been transitioned to digital learning specialist, or DLS. And so eventually I will, we can work on changing that. Title, it's just words, But anyway, thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, David. Is there any questions for either David or for Robin?
Well, what was the tool that you worked with Ken?
Pear Deck.
Okay.
Pear Deck. So you just take slides, like digital slides.
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint is an example. Google Slides is what most teachers use because we're a Google school, and you can just embed some interactivity through those. So when Ken had a question for the staff, and rather than have those couple of eager teachers who always answer the question and you never hear from the others, to really get a good sense of what where people are, it goes out to their devices. So teachers, you can log in 30 seconds on your phone or on your laptop, and whatever slide we were on that Ken was presenting went to all their devices. So the teachers had it on their screens and we were projecting it, but on their screen they had to give the feedback. And we could show the feedback up here, but the names are stripped away for anonymity, so we can be anonymous and say, this is what you guys have reported, and Ken is getting live actual feedback that he needs from his teachers. So it's a great tool for for classroom teachers, for administrators, you name it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yep, go ahead, Deb.
What type, we've heard a lot about training, integration for teachers and things like that. What about paraprofessionals and office professionals? What's being done to help them as well in all of these changes? Because I was a
Yep.
word perfect person that went to a Word, now I'm Google. I
Yep.
mean, you know, the training, especially of them at my age.
He's worked with someone, for example, Lita has become our SSR and ISS person, and she needed Google Forms, she needed ways to get feedback from the students, ways to track how many times they've come in and try to identify why they come in at this period every time, what is the issue. And he went in and helped her create forms so that she gets great feedback on those forms to actually help eliminate kids going to ISS and help eliminate kids going to SSR by having them do an intake form, which will track the information for her. That was one great example.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of our paraprofessionals in middle school. Our librarians today in middle school, we got a brand new librarian, and having her work on the Destiny and the backside to try to work on our catalog system to take a group of resources out to move the other, how we categorize those. They're like, we don't know how to do this. And I said, I don't either, but I'm going to find out. And then I'm going to show you how to do it so that next time you have a question like this, you can do it yourself. So that was today. We helped them solve what they had today, found out the contact number and our account numbers and how to access all that. And they're kind of off and running with that.
So we have professional days for our teachers and staff. Is there any part of that, those days, including these office staff? Or that they get maybe a workshop on Adobe, how to use Adobe, you know, or
Yeah,
things
and
of
we
that nature?
definitely, in professional development, I know that I've talked with Dan, and Alma is a big thing for administrative staff and teachers and support staff. That's a huge area that we're looking at doing a professional development on, and I'm sure there'll be other tools as well too. And it basically, his work out there, he talks to everybody, he's gonna find out where the need is. So when we do a professional development, he's with every single person at every single school pretty much every week. So he's able to do that. And I know with like the paraprofessionals, he's used to working with paraprofessionals as having been a teacher.
Yeah, usually the way it works is the teacher who works with the paraprofessional in the classroom says, I need my paraprofessional to be able to do this, to work with these tools. Can you help? Absolutely. So that's usually how I hear. Sometimes the paraprofessionals will come and see me. And I have worked with them in the classroom, so I understand, you know, that role. I've worked with the counselors here in the high school. They were working on some sign-up, different ways to do virtual sign-ups and things like that. And so there's always need, and I'm always you know, eager to help and meet people where they are, wherever they are at the school and in our district. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Dave. Great job that you're both doing.
Thank you for
Thank you.
inviting us.
Thank you, guys.
All right. We'll now move on to agenda item number 6. This is our roll of business, so we'll start out with our financial report from our business administrator, Jefferson.
Why do we call it old business?
Hey, that's what's on the agenda. I gotta go by it.
It's a new title, I don't know.
Finance report. We'll do it to finance report, Colleen. We'll just put,
Yeah, old guy.
we'll put it down as finance report now.
More gray hairs today. Good evening, everyone. So I hope you all had an opportunity to review the financial reports that I uploaded to the board drive. We have spent and encumbered about 94.8% of the budget so far. Now, the budget is reflective of the updated approved amounts as voted at the last city council meeting, to include the $656,956 of additional fund balance and adequacy aid that we received this year. and the $250,000 that we received for the Portrait of the Graduate grant funding. This leaves a balance of the budget of appropriations of $1,025,711 at this point, unobligated. We're still early in the year. We have a lot of fluctuations, so that'll change quite a bit. I've done some analysis, and based on changing in personnel and unfilled positions at this point, which is obviously in high flux also, as Dave mentioned, we just hired a librarian at the middle school, so this has changed since then. But the last time I did this report, we had about $810,024 of savings in salary and benefits related to these personnel changes in unfilled positions. Obviously, we try to remedy those as much as we can as we try to find individuals for these positions. These savings, though, are primarily offsetting overages that we're seeing in our contracted services and transportation lines, primarily due to special education, speech, and occupational therapy, and homelessness transportation. These total about $801,000 of excess expenditures that we are recognizing at this point, at this particular moment. We are planning on using ESSER funds to offset some of these overages, as they are unanticipated expenditures and can be considered a result of the pandemic due to our additional needs of compensatory services and such of those nature. I plan on discussing these more in depth at the next Finance Committee meeting on how much we want to transfer to the ESSER grants to cover those costs. Some of these costs we are currently recognizing $489,812 over budget under special education contracted services, $45,430 over budget on speech services, and $129,598 over budget on occupational therapy services. And as far as revenue, we have received an additional $89,253 since the last board meeting. These are related to indirect costs, which are the administrative costs related to grant funding, small amount related to athletic receipts for our sporting events, and the food service program. Part of the additional revenue that we recognized from the food service program is related to the USDA approval of emergency operational funds during the pandemic for the period of March 2020 to June 2020. This was determined by a special calculation as part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 for the federal government, which ended up giving us an additional $37,424 of unanticipated funding for the food service program. So that'll help us as we go through the year, depending on how our revenue and expenses shake out. On some positive news front, we have received our preliminary adequacy aid estimate and statewide education property tax projections for next year, FY23. The current estimate, now this is an estimate, we're projected to receive $8,433,990 in adequacy aid, which is $165,303 higher than what we are currently receiving for this year. Unfortunately, we won't actually know our correct amount until October 1st of next year, because they always base it on your end of year ADM counts at the end of our current year. One component of that, though, is the free and reduced piece, and part of the language in that law said that the amount that they'll identify for free and reduced will be the greater of either FY22 free and reduced counts or FY20 counts, so 2 years ago before the pandemic started. That was also a portion that was used to determine our adequacy aid number for this current year. And so they made determined to keep that number in the formula, because as with our food service program, we are providing meals 100% free for everybody within the school district, which has caused the number of applications that we typically get in for free and reduced to be reduced, because a lot of families don't have the need or feel the need to do that. However, it does affect our other funding, so we try to remedy that as best we can.
Jefferson, is that number based on a hard number or a percentage of students?
Which number?
For the free and reduced number?
The free and reduced is based on a count, so it's an ADM count. Yeah, so like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but for FY20, I think we were around 650 on the ADM, and at the end of last year, for FY21, I believe we got up to about 450. The initial projection was actually 250 individuals lower. So that's why they decided to use, and this is statewide, that they used the FY20 count because it's a more realistic count. And we typically have a higher percentage, around 65% on the free and reduced scale. So it's not like we lost that many kids to free and reduced. It's just that the ability to identify those kids is much harder since we are providing meals for free to everybody. But as we know, it affects other funding sources for the school district. So the state government recognizes that and has made that language part of the formula. With the statewide education property tax, now this is the fixed number now, it is going to be $1,224,669, which is $33,698 higher than the current year amount, and that'll be certain because that won't change. We will also be receiving $10,485 for what they're calling an Educational Funding Accounts Phase-Out Grant related to the number of students that are taking advantage of the new private school funding program that was passed by the legislature. This is 50% of the entitlement that we get, and in FY24 we'll receive 25% of that entitlement, and then after FY24 it's completely phased out, so we won't get any more funding on that one. And that's the extent of what I have for this evening as far as numbers. I'm sure everybody's excited about that.
Does anybody have any questions for Jefferson?
Yes.
Go ahead, Cecile.
What percent voucher system is going to happen to us if it is passed by the state? The committee just approved the voucher, a new voucher system?
They approved a new one.
Okay.
It's the amendment.
Oh, it's the amendment, sorry.
The House Bill 607.
There was an amendment done on that that's going to change the voucher program that was recently passed in the governor's budget.
What's going to change about it?
It's going to
Takes away the income requirement.
correct.
The low income requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's unclear at this point, Cecile, about whether or not there'll be impacts on districts versus whether there'll be impacts on the state budget. So we're in the early stages and we're following it. It's actually gonna be on the I-2.
You're talking about the local tax money following the student. So that would take local tax money out of our district and send it with students, whether they're
It's potentially gonna do that, but they're not there yet. So I think it's gonna be on the I-2 committee agenda for the I-2 meeting after Thanksgiving on Wednesday night. So we can have a long discussion at that point about where we're at and, what the possible iterations are gonna be as we move forward. But it's anywhere from what Delaney's referring to, which is it's gonna drain our system, versus it's gonna increase the amount of funds that we need for education, because all these kids are now getting funding on top of the funding that we get. So it's between there somewhere. I don't think anybody can predict where that's gonna fall at this point. So that'll be the conversation we have at I-2.
Well, rather than predicting the money, I think you need to predict on what the enrollment will be, the enrollment loss, when every student can have a voucher regardless of income. Franklin being low income, whatever impact the first round had will affect the students that want to leave. The next round will affect the students that can more than pay to go to, let's say, to a private school or a Bible school.
I will say at this point, we've seen zero impact on this year's EFAs. We have students that have taken advantage of it, but I believe we only have 4 existing students that left us out of the whole district, based on the data that I reviewed.
Well, the other part of the equation is I presented the demographics about 4 months ago. 125 to 150 students came into the Franklin School District, but they didn't enroll in SAU 18. They went to other avenues for their education.
I don't have any knowledge of that.
Well, I do, and that's why I'm saying there's 125 students unaccounted for in the SAU 18 in our school district that came into Franklin, that could have come to the SAU, could have come to the Franklin School District, but they chose other sources to educate their children.
Paul, could you share the source of that so we could,
My own demographics, I presented it 4 months ago. Nobody listens to my demographics, so I'm not gonna repeat it. It's on the YouTube. There you go.
Okay, so you're the one that calculated.
I'm the one that calculated because it's part of my work. I mentioned it all, and it's on the YouTube 4 months ago, 5 months ago. Oh.
Let's keep moving forward here. All right, so is there any other questions for Jefferson? All right, thank you, Jefferson. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. Deb, do you want to start?
We met on November 10th, and we reviewed all of the bank reconciliations, financial reports that you received in tonight's packet. Jefferson also did a budget update with us. Dan presented us with the budget calendar that will begin the process for our next budget cycle. The building project was at the middle school entryway, has a few small touch-ups left to be handled, and that project came in at budget, no additional cost. And Dan shared with us the New Hampshire Fair funding project, which he will go over a little bit later on.
Thank you, Deb. Any questions for Deb?
yeah, what's the next meeting, Deb?
Next meeting is December 14th at 5:30.
Any other questions for Deb? Thank you, Deb. Are there any other committee reports to be brought forward this evening? Go ahead, Delaney.
We had an Innovation and Improvement Committee meeting on November 3rd. We discussed some state assessment score data that we'll be going over later tonight under the superintendent's report. We started our review process again for the strategic plan. We reviewed core value 1. We will be reviewing core value 2 in January and core value 3 in April. And our focus this year in reviewing is in measurables. And the administrative team did a great job before this meeting in going through core value 1 and presenting measurables for this for that first section. So making great progress on that already. And our next meeting is December 1st at 6 o'clock at the SAU. We will have the HB 607 on the agenda at that meeting if anybody would like to attend, and we're always accessible via Zoom.
Thank you, Delaney. Are there any questions for Delaney? Are there any other committee reports to be brought before the school board this evening?
Tim, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead, Deb.
In our packet, there was a letter for Officer Nutrition Program. Jefferson, was that something that we needed to know about, other than the documentation?
So that one good?
The Officer Nutrition Programs and Services, the additional money, $37,000.
Yeah.
I must have missed it.
Yeah, I reported that as part of the additional food service revenue that we received. That was
Okay,
the revenue
I didn't hear
discussion.
you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any other committee reports? All right, we'll close that portion of the meeting. We'll move on to agenda item 8, which is our new business, and it is our update from our superintendent.
Okay, the first item is school board self-evaluation and goal-setting policy, policy BA. The policy committee has been doing its work for the last 3 or 4 years. And policy BA states that in November, the school board will get together and talk about not only evaluating, self-evaluation of the board, but also setting goals. So I'll turn it over to Tim.
All right, thank you, Dan. As Section BBA states, okay, the board will conduct an annual self-evaluation within the month of November. Coextensive with the board self-evaluation, the board will establish annual goals and objectives. The board believes that the establishing of annual goals and objectives will serve as a benchmark and criteria for the annual self-evaluation. So what I'm looking for over the next 30 days until we meet again on December 20th is that if you would look over the following areas of board operational relationships as they're related to the objectives, and just write down any ideas or any goals or objectives that you would like to see over the next year. Okay, we don't have to go through, you don't have to do all of them, but if there's certain objectives or areas that you'd like to set some goals for, and then if you would just write something of how you feel this board has been doing over the past year. So a self-evaluation of the board itself, okay? And then if we could turn that in so that we can set our objectives and just look and see how the board's doing. If there's areas that we need to improve on, then we need to talk about that so that we can set those benchmarks over the next year. So I'd like to get this done for the the December meeting, so that when we go into the next year, okay, as of it stands right now, we'll have one new board member joining us, so we'll be able to show them the objectives, okay? But other than that, the 8 board members that are currently, with us will still be among us. So we'll be able to do these objectives and goals. So if we can just look at that and come out with some ideas that we can all discuss at our December meeting, and then come out with some goals that we want to set for ourselves and benchmarks we would like to reach for the next year. Does anybody have any questions on that? All right, so like I said, BA pretty much explains it. Superintendent Legallo has given everybody a copy of that, so I would just ask if you would bring that to the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. We have received a $5,200 grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation for our music department here in the district, so I need the board to approve.
Make a motion to accept the $5,200 grant from NHCF.
A motion is made by Deb to accept the $5,200 grant, from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation Music Grant, seconded by Cecile. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, the grant's accepted.
Okay, next item is the New Hampshire School Boards Association withdrawal from the National School Boards Association. Tim had requested that I put this on for discussion.
As you guys know, I sit on the board of directors for the New Hampshire School Board Association. A while back, there was a letter that was sent to President Biden from the National School Board Association. And in that letter, it basically was asking the U.S. Attorney General to look at some of the disruptions that have been going on in school boards across the United States, and to look at these parents that were doing this as domestic terrorists. Well, obviously, this caused a huge firestorm across the United States because the letter was signed as being represented by all school board associations across the United States, and that was not the fact. The New Hampshire School Board Association was never notified, nor did we take any stand or have any input on that letter that was sent to President Biden by the National School Board Association. And it caused a huge rift and a huge wedge that was put in between many school boards and school board members throughout the state of New Hampshire. Many that are members of the New Hampshire School Board Association And there was a lot of controversy and a lot of very heated discussions in meetings across New Hampshire. And because of this, the New Hampshire School Board Association, at the direction of the Board of Directors, felt that it was time for us to cut our ties with the National School Board Association, because we did not like, number one, that, this was associated, that we were part of this letter, when in fact we had no input in this letter at all. So we just felt with the firestorm that this was causing in our state, that we no longer wanted to be part of the National School Board Association. So as a board of directors, we voted to withdraw, and we have sent our letter to the National School Board Association, in which there was no response back from them. So that pretty much told us where things stood, because we received no response back from them. Barrett Christina, who is the executive director of the New Hampshire School Board Association, has reached out to other executive directors for other school board associations, and there could be talk in the future of maybe having a regional school board association, which we could pool our sources together to work with, but we just felt the direction that the National School Board Association was not in line with how the New Hampshire School Board Association wanted to be, and that's why we withdrew. So it was effective immediately, and like I said, the letter was signed and sent to the National School Board Association, and they have not responded back to us about anything with that letter. Cecile?
What are we going to be losing by not being part of the national board?
We won't lose anything within the state. What they sometimes help us with is like policies, but we are able to reach out to other school board associations, and we have our own in-house attorney through the New Hampshire School Board Association that does the review of policies. So there was some training. We sometimes sent some of our members to the training. The one that's coming up soon is through San Diego. So there's sort of some networking that goes on. So we'll lose some of that networking. But the New Hampshire School Board Association will still continue to offer all the services, and we won't lose any of that within the state of New Hampshire.
Yes, so when did we withdraw from the New Hampshire School Board Association? It's fairly liberal, and all they want is grab money.
Well, I guess at the budget season, you can make that motion if you don't want us to be members of it, and then the motion can fall from how it falls, Paul. But it's a decision of the school board, and the school board is elected to continue the services of the New Hampshire School Board Association. And until a motion is made for us to withdraw, we will, and passes unanimously, then we'll continue being members of the New Hampshire School Board Association.
Well, that's sad.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm not.
Okay, so that's a personal opinion on your part. All right, are there any other questions dealing with the New Hampshire School Board Association withdrawal from the National School Board Association? Okay. All right, thank you, Dan.
All right, next up is we have beginning of year elementary school reading data. So I'm gonna turn it over to Sue, and Sue's gonna go through this and just give you a heads up on it.
So I hopefully will be able to give you an eloquent overview of the data and how we obtain the data. So we have become pretty knowledgeable about the teaching of reading, both pre-kindergarten all the way up to the grade levels. And that we've been successful with that through our Pontus and Pinnell curriculum, or our adoption. As many of you may know or may remember, we started with Fontes and Pinnell before I came here, about 6 years ago, with the adoption of level literacy intervention. And what the hope was 6 years ago was that through the adoption of this program, which was a Tier 2 program, we would be able to support our kids who were struggling in reading. One of the things that didn't happen back then was we didn't have training for our staff. And so when I came on board, the boxes stayed on the shelf until we could train our staff, because to do anything well, you need to train your teachers. We trained our Title I teachers, and as soon as they were trained, they began to fulfill their role as interventionists. The problem was it spoke a different language than our reading resource that we were using across all the grades was speaking. And as most of you know, not all of you, the year before COVID, we adopted Fountas and Pinnell Classroom, which is a brand new program which has been developed through many years of research and resources in how young children learn how to read. For us here, what LLI has helped us do is become more knowledgeable about what it means to read at an elementary school level. So this data is based on coming back to school this fall after a 17-month hiatus. So to help the board understand this, I continually say this to my staff. The last time our third graders were in school full-time was March of their first grade experience. The last time our second graders were in school full-time was March of their kindergarten experience. And we have no full-time data for our first graders or our kindergartners other than what they start this year. So this data, you can see our third graders, they held on to some of the skills and concepts that we taught them before we went into COVID. And that's reflected in the data. So if you look at exceed expectations, what that means is that 22%, yes, it's a small number, but in relationship to only be coming to school part-time for 17 months, 22% is a good number. And then you can see how it shifts second grade and first grade. First grade, our kiddos, this is like their kindergarten experience. So they're just beginning their school experience. What we also did this year that we've never done before is our Title I team, which is now 4 team members, assessed our whole school. Not kindergarten, because that's a different approach. But grades 1, 2, and 3 all had similar assessments. So I wanted to tell you what those assessments are, just so that you know. And it's really cool, because I'm even looking at their individual data right now. But for first graders, we assess them using the Fountas and Pinnell Reading Benchmark, which is essentially a running record. You hand a child a book, and based on what we know about the child, the individual child, so this is all individual assessments, we hand them a particular book. So if they're at level C, we'll hand them a level C book, and one of the interventionists that works with them will mark a sheet of paper that has the whole story as they read, and will mark their mistakes, their self-corrections, their errors, and that type of thing. And then that is scored for each child. We also, through Fountas and Pinnell, so some of you may remember this, but there were dolch words, and there were high-frequency words, and there were all kinds of names for the same thing, and that was words that children can't read through sounding them out, okay? So you can do the TH sound, but what does the E do at the end? So we have a list of words for every grade level that the children should know somewhere during the year, whether it's the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, or the end of the year. So all of our students are assessed on the Fountas and Pinnell words that they know and that they can read, because it's automatic. It's not something that you can sound out. And then for our kindergartners and our first graders, we do something called the phonological awareness assessment, and those are your pre-reading skills. You know, does the child know the front of the book, the back of the book? Can the child hear sounds? Sounds that are similar, sounds that are dissimilar. And that helps us have a better understanding of what a child knows and is able to do in our sound system. So do they know initial sounds? Can they segment? Can they rhyme? Those types of things. Do they even know what it means to rhyme? I had fun today doing that with the first grader. So through this variety of assessments, we are then able to come up with these scores. So they are the scores that they are. What is very interesting about this is I was just talking to Jen Weaver today, and when we come back from Thanksgiving vacation, our holiday, we are actually ready to reassess our children again. So we should see a shift in these scores. And what we're allowed to see either as teachers or administrators is what the shifts are. So if you are a first grader, you should be reading somewhere between a level A and a level E. At the end of the school year, it is our hopes that our first graders will be reading a D or an E. And if they're not, then what interventions are we going to put in place? This gave us our foundational data to be able to then set up our tier 2 groups. And our tier 2 groups right now for reading alone, those 4 people, or 3.5 people, because Kate and Mel also do math, are seeing 80 children a week to provide reading support to the children. So as you look at does not meet expectation or needs intensive intervention, that is where we targeted our kids who are now receiving small group intensive remediation. Small group is supposed to be no more than 3 students. In some cases, we might have squeezed in a 4th because it was a child that we really did not want them not to have services. So in what group of children could we maybe squeeze in a 4th child to provide those intervention services? So between the intervention services that Title I is offering, and then the services that our teachers are offering in the classroom, we will be able to pull all of that data together and now make a comparison of what's working, what's not working, what do we need to shift. Sometimes a conversation with special ed of, you know what, we've been sitting, and this wouldn't happen now, but we've been sitting a long amount of time, 6 months, at the same level, or maybe a half a level higher. Maybe there's something else we need to do to support our kids. So this is our beginning data. We're excited to have it. You know, are we happy with what it is? No, it is what it is after 18 months or 17 months of whatever we want to call it. I'm not going to call it anything other than driven by something none of us expected, and we're hoping and working diligently, and if Title I was here and the classroom teachers were here, they would say working diligently to help our kids become stronger readers and understand the foundation of reading. What you don't see on this is that we actually have some 3rd graders who are working significantly above grade level. So those are the nice things that we can see and we can celebrate. More than happy to answer questions if you have them. I know it's just a piece of paper that puts our kids in 4 different levels.
Sue, just to speak, I realize the struggle, okay, in 18 months. And this board realizes the struggle in the last 18 months. And we realized, we looked at the state scores, as we all know, last month. We presented the state scores to the city council. And nobody's going to sit here and make excuses for the scores. All of us understand it 100%, you know, and as Superintendent Legallo said to the city council, no one's more discouraged than he was when he stood up there and gave those scores. But he also realized that, you know, this is an 18-month thing, you know, and unless we know where we started, that's exactly what he said to the city council, unless you know where we started and where we're going to, we have to have a benchmark here of the beginning point. Okay, we said the same thing last month during the meeting when we dealt with the state scores, and we're going to say the same thing. We understand, and we're not going to ever put any blame on you or any other administrator in this district, because this has been an 18-month horror show for our children, and it continues. Okay, it continues. But as it's been said with this board, you know, this is a starting point. 2 or 3 years down the road, we have the same results, then we have an issue. we have a serious issue. That's not the case. We know the efforts that you put in, and every other administrator in the other schools, okay? So please don't think that we weigh this as a failure of you, Ken, Carrie, or anybody else, because we don't. And the first time it does, I'll tell you right now, I'll walk right away from the school board, because I want no part of something that they're gonna be failing our administrators, because I don't want to be part of it. But it's not their fault, so we understand that. Okay?
Thank you, Ken.
You're
What
welcome.
I'm excited about is just that we have pulled ourselves together and have a really nice assessment tool that doesn't just focus on one area, but focuses on a multitude of areas where we can actually say, you know, a child who's in first grade, we need to go back to the phonemic awareness skills because they are just not ready for a running record. So we have a consistency of assessment that we can use across all 4 grade levels to help us better understand our kids as learners.
We are making great progress, and it's great to hear that there's a standard to base it on. However, unfortunately, Franklin's proficiency ratings were in the tank and sinking before COVID. We keep bringing up COVID, but that belies the fact and ignores the fact that Franklin's proficiency ratings were dismal to abysmal way before COVID started.
You know, the interventions that we put in place, Paul, were all stopped by COVID. So all the work that we've done, we never got a response on. So we have to reinstitute what we were doing and hope then that those interventions will show as promising as we were hopeful at March of 2020 when everything stopped.
Sure.
So we did never deny that the scores weren't a concern. We made lots of changes, and we were never able to do an assessment because of COVID. You're basing this off of scores from 2018-19, and now we're into 2022. So that's what I'm trying to say as superintendent is we were visited by the U.S. Department of Secretary of Ed, Assistant Secretary of Ed for promising practices in both the elementary and middle school. We had wonderful things going on. We were getting ready to do our first assessment with the kids, and the schools were shut down. And we never got any input from our kids about how those changes were. And for 18 months, we sat there and dealt with what we've dealt with. And then we were asked to assess after 18 months. So we're going right back to where we were in putting these things back in place as much as we can with COVID, because we still can't do a lot of what we talked to you about doing in the last 3 years. And we're going to put those back in place, and over the next 2 to 3 years, we are expecting to produce. And I have stated claim on this with my administrators that within the next 3 years, we will produce, period. I'm stating it here publicly. We will produce in the next 3 years based on what we have in place now.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but we keep forgetting the fact that the Franklin proficiency ratings were horrible before COVID even began.
I'm not forgetting that.
Thank you.
I'm not forgetting that. I don't think any of my administrators are forgetting that. We made a lot of changes, but we're never able to do a dipstick, Paul. Think about it. If you were on a diet, and you were on a diet for 15 months, but you were never able to step on a scale, and you were about to step on the scale to celebrate, and then all of a sudden you weren't allowed to step on the scale, and then for 18 months all you had to do was eat junk food and garbage, and then 18 months later they asked you to step on the scale, and you gained a bunch of weight, and you never got any credit for what you did? Think about that. That's what they asked us to do. They asked us to do that. Everybody in this room was asked to do that after 18 months of having no school, or having partial school, or having remote school. Nobody in this room created any of this. All we did is respond and take care of every individual kid that we could. And then when we came back to school for 2 weeks, and then we were asked by the state to take these state tests after being in school for 2 weeks. That's what we were asked to do. So, no, we're not going to put a lot of stock in those scores. I put a lot of stock in these scores. This is a starting point. If we can't move from this starting point throughout this year and into next year, then yes, we have huge issues that we need to address. But I believe with the interventions we have in place that we will move from this starting point. This will go to the city council first week of December, and the city council will see this, and I will say, here's your starting point. Here's the impact of the pandemic and where we're at with our grade 1, 2, and 3 students. Here's the starting point. So if 3% and 4% in grade 1 stays at 3% and 4% for the next year or two, and we've made no impact and no growth, then you have a beef with us and you should get rid of all of us. But if 3% and 4% turns into 30% and 35%, but the state average is 50%, you shouldn't look at that and say, what's wrong with you guys? You should say, hey, great job, you started at 7% and you got it to 30 to 35%. Even though you're not at state average, that's a heck of a job, guys. So we need informed discussions. We need informed people looking at the data, knowing what we're starting from and where we end up. And then I'll have that conversation with anybody in the city that wants to have it.
I understand, but until I mentioned it this evening, no one has ever mentioned the test scores and the proficiency ratings before COVID. I am now on the record saying that Franklin had a very dismal proficiency rating before COVID started. And I'm certainly hoping that all of this that we're doing makes a difference. A child needs to read to learn by grade 3. I don't think anybody denies that. So let's.
Nobody disagrees with that, Paul.
So we're moving forward.
We are absolutely moving forward.
Thank you.
But I just want to make sure that when we look at the data, that we have, an educated lens on it to say, what are we looking at? And let's make some, we can spin it any way we want to spin it, but let's make some realistic expectations about what we're looking at and where we're going. That's all I ask, is that you're fair to our teachers and you're fair to our administrators about what we start with and where we end up. That's all I ask.
Well, if we're at 3 and 4 and 6% a year from now, 2 years from now, I think heads need to start to roll.
I would agree with you. If we stay at 3 and 4%, I would totally agree with you. FHS Adventure Club at the high school. We have the FHS Adventure Club we're trying to start. One of our counselors here, Jamie Bryant, he was not able to come here tonight to talk to you about this, but he is excited to start an adventure club. He's actually talked with Marty Parashow, and Tim is going to talk about this.
Do you want to hand it out to everyone here?
Sure, yep.
Okay. So Jamie asked me to speak a little bit about the Adventure Club. So I would just like everyone to get a copy of what he is. Here, you can take a look. Okay. Here, give me one. So I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I did review it, but Jamie Bryant wants to start an adventure club where he is taking students on opportunities outside of the building. What he's talking about is opportunities to get them out there and get their adrenaline flowing. And so he is really looking for some support here from the local community and the board and your approval. Included in this handout is the rationale, some objectives. He has some money already donated, I think about $3,000. He's got students and staff who are interested. He certainly is covering the liability, transportation, and the expectations regarding club participation. And I would ask that you direct any questions you have towards Jamie Bryant.
When you said approval of the board, what type of approval are you looking for?
Well, my understanding is that this has to be board approved. This is something that the board has to okay. Is that my understanding? No? No. Good.
This is for informational purposes. This is just to let the board know that we're starting an adventure club at the high school as one of our extracurricular activities.
Is there a stipend related to this?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what kind of activities this will be?
Yeah, so some of the activities he was talking about, like ice skating, would be one of those activities. Rock climbing is another activity. The whitewater rafting, these are the types of activities, just to get kids out and doing things. Yeah. He mentioned, the possibility of taking kids to the ocean because so many of the kids here in town have never actually been to the seacoast before. I know. So, just opportunities like that for these kids to experience something that they may not have had an opportunity to experience before joining the club.
Any other questions regarding the Adventure Club?
Having a good time.
All right, we sure will. You'll be thrilled about that. Okay, winter clothing donation. We have an anonymous donor who is a former student of Paul Smith School, who has donated 50 winter coats, hats, and mittens to both the elementary school, and then any that are too big will be pushed over to the middle school. He is a wonderful donor, lives on the West Coast, had a poor upbringing and made it big as an adult, and wanted to do this. He kind of does stuff every year, and this is his thing, and wants to stay anonymous, but I do need the board to accept it.
I move that the board accept the winter clothing donation from the anonymous donor of 50 jackets, hats, etc.
A motion been made to accept the winter clothing donation from an anonymous donor. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Maureen. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, the donation's accepted.
Thank you very much.
I just have a question. Is it total 50 that's going to be shared by both schools, or is it 50 to each school?
No, it's 50. Most of them will go to the elementary school, but some of the larger sizes might be too big, and he had asked me to move them to the middle school if they're too big. So we'll do that. Thank you, Cecile.
I have a box ready for you.
Good. Thank you, Sue. Okay, winter coaches. Danny has given me a list of his winter coaches that I'd like to nominate for the winter season. So I'm recommending for our high school, I have Mark Dion as the head varsity girls basketball coach. Maddie Trefethlin is the head JV girls basketball coach. Dave Bedard is the head varsity boys basketball coach. And Cameron Colby is the head JV boys basketball coach. Do those separately from the middle school.
Excuse me, but I don't, what are those numbers?
Salaries.
1230.
The 112-3-0, that's the line item.
That's a budget line.
Oh, okay.
And then the parentheses is their salaries.
Or something.
No,
That's just Jefferson's budget line.
Yeah, their line. All right, so we have 4 nominations brought forward. There's 1 open position as the head indoor track. I'm sure if that's filled, that name will be brought before the board. So we just need a motion to accept these high school coaches.
Move to accept the coaches as presented.
Second.
Motion been made by Delaney to accept the coaches as is presented, second by Cecile. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
1 abstention. The ayes have it, and the coaches are accepted at the high school.
Tim, can I make a motion to allow the superintendent to hire the indoor track coach if-
Thank you, Deb. Yeah.
without bringing it to us?
Yep. Can we have a second? I'll second it. The motion been made to allow the superintendent to hire the head indoor track coach if one is found without needing to bring it back to the school board. Motion made by Deb, seconded by myself. Do we have any discussion on that? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That is, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And at the middle school, I'm recommending Kyle Kaplan as the head girls basketball coach and Andrew Turner as the head boys basketball coach.
I make a motion to accept these positions as presented.
Motion is made by Deb to accept the middle school coaches as has been presented. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Delaney. Do we have any discussion?
I just have a question, not necessarily about the coaches, but are there any particular accommodations being made for winter sports this year that are COVID-related?
Well, Danny and I had a conversation, and we talked the other day about it, and we still monitor week to week what's happening. At this point for basketball, we are looking at mask optional, unless we have clusters or cases, at which point we would move to mask mandatory. Right now, we do not have any clusters in any of our schools. In fact, the middle school will move to 3 feet tomorrow, and if they don't have any cases over Thanksgiving, would be back to mask optional come Monday after vacation. So it's potentially likely that that's where they'll be. The elementary school, we've seen an uptick in, so we're monitoring there. There's no sports at the elementary school, so we don't really have to worry about that. And the high schools has had sporadic cases and has maintained the 3-foot distancing for its entirety. It's never moved to 6 feet. So at this point, depending on what the school is at, probably is what we would do with the sports. So if the school's at mask optional, then I would believe that we would be at mask optional for the fans as well as the players. I think the players probably would be mask optional regardless. There's not a lot of schools at all that are thinking about doing masking of players.
Is there any discussion at the sports league level, like there was last year, about how they want to handle it for the whole
Divisions?
the whole division?
They're leaving it up to the individual district. I mean, there is discussions that they're having. They just, all the ADs talk to each other. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I can connect with Danny again, because we don't have games for another few weeks. And like I said, we talk all the time about where are we at, where are we at, where are we at. So I use our plan as the example, so best case scenarios is we're mask optional, because that's what our plan says. But if we have cases and things in the schools, then we have to make that decision about whether we're gonna go to mask required, based on whatever situation we're in. So, I mean, we can have that discussion at the board level. Certainly, the board has the authority to do whatever it needs to do. I will continue to follow the plan, the way we've written the plan, and make those decisions based on the day-to-day data that comes to me. So, however you want to proceed is fine with me.
Do we have any direction on, for spectators? Because I know some schools are going to
Can I just make a
Zoom
point,
only.
can I just make a point of order? We're
I'm
supposed to
sorry.
be voting on coaches.
Oh,
Okay,
what was the
we're
question that was
way
asked?
off, we're way off topic here. So if we wanna have COVID discussion, we can have it on delayed items, but I really need to make a point of order because we're not following our own policies here and our own agenda. And superintendent has asked for the approval of winter coaches for middle school, not dealing with COVID. So if we want to have the COVID discussion, we'll have it on the late items, please. So the motion's been made. Colleen, could you give me who made the motion, who seconded, please?
Deb Brown motioned and Delaney Carrier second for the middle school teachers as presented.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on the nomination of coaches? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and the middle school coaches are accepted.
Thank you. Moving on to the New Hampshire Fair Funding Project. So Jefferson and I were contacted by the director of the New Hampshire Fair Funding Project, Jeff McLynch. They're the group in the state that's been lobbying for fair funding from the state level. They had asked a couple of districts last year to create a budget using state funds only and not to use local funds or federal funds. So I think it was Pittsfield and, what was the other one?
Berlin.
Berlin, maybe?
Yes.
Berlin, I think. I think it was Pittsfield and Berlin that had done that exercise. So they reached out to us to do that, and we said we'd be happy to do that. So basically, the exercise was take your state funding from 2019 and cut your budget so that your budget would be reflective of what you receive only from the state. And obviously, their point of view is the state doesn't provide an adequate education. That's been for 30 years, which has been going on, the Claremont decision and all that. So Jefferson and I looked at our budget, and I
Yeah, we
think
actually did FY '21.
fiscal year 21?
Yeah.
Fiscal year 21 budget. So we told everybody around us that we were doing this as an exercise, and it wasn't real, because we didn't want people thinking that we were in dire straits. And we went and cut the budget down to, what was the exact amount, Jefferson?
It was
The $18 million budget became
about 9 million.
9 million something. So as you can imagine, it was catastrophic. The budget we cut, I mean, we cut a whole bunch of things to get down to that. We cut all support staff. We cut down to one secretary and one administrator in each building. We had a business administrator and a superintendent 1 day a week. We cut down to one custodian and during the day and one at night, so the buildings would get cleaned every 3 days. We cut a whole host of other, I mean, we cut $9 million worth of stuff, I guess is what we would say. They are going to reach back out to us to talk to us about what happened with our budget. And typically, there'll be some kind of release that talks about what would have happened in Franklin if we had to rely solely on the state budget. So the only reason I agreed to do this was because it was not an attack of the city. I would not have done it if it was gonna be an attack of the city's funding. I was not interested in participating in that. This was an exercise in kind of calling out the state on their lack of funding and adequate education, which we've talked about for a long time at this table. But that's what the New Hampshire Fair Funding Project was, and we can keep you updated on what kind of outcomes there'll be from this exercise that we have participated in. And Jefferson and I can take questions if you have any.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Dan.
The only other thing I have, just other than a late item that we'll do at late items, is I would like to invite all of the board members on December 16th at 4 o'clock to join the administrative team over at Mulger for our annual celebratory get-together. So if you are around December 16th at 4 o'clock, you could come join us. That would be wonderful. We did it last year. It was a nice night, and I'd be happy to host everybody again.
We didn't do it last
Year prior, before COVID, sorry, the day before COVID.
How much beer, how many pitchers of beer we allowed?
Whatever you pay
It'll
for.
be my first time in 6 years.
I heard the superintendent was gonna buy the first one for everybody, so after that, we're on.
Wait a minute, I thought it was all on you.
But I will text everybody and remind you of this, because it's before our next meeting, but if you can make it, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions to the superintendent's report? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 9. Agenda item 9 is our administrative report, so we'll start with our curriculum report from Jewel.
So my report is obviously in the folder, so I'm not gonna read through it. I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that our curriculum meetings have finally resumed. The board approved a 5-year curriculum cycle 2 years ago, and we had just begun that process when COVID hit, so it had to stop, and last year was not a good time to resume that work, but we were able to resume this year. I did have a meeting with the ELA team, math and science. Unfortunately, our social studies team had to reschedule due to a conflict of space. So that meeting was rescheduled for December 6th, but as Dave pointed out earlier, we've had some really, really great conversations, and it's wonderful to resume that vertical work and really spend some time working on strengthening and improving our curriculum. Outside of that, I listed updates on PD, Portrait of a Graduate, which is also kind of redundant, and then just a thank you to Tim for recognizing the kids. They did do an incredible job. They sold out 2 shows, which I say that it's COVID seating, but still worked for us. And some of those kids, as well as 3 high school staff members and kids from Paul Smith and the middle school, will all be performing in ELF a week from this coming Friday. And it's all a part of the city's conglomeration with the holiday stroll and the Festival of Trees. And I know some of you are very active in all of that anyway, but I wanted to make sure people were aware that that is all coming up right after Thanksgiving.
And tickets for Alpha selling like crazy.
They are. We've already pre-sold over 510, so if you want a ticket, you need to get it soon.
Yes, you do. All right, thank you, Jewel.
Yep.
Are there any questions for Jewel? I know all of you have received a report. All right.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the special education report with Rebecca.
I'm gonna hit the highlights because I believe everyone's had a chance to review it. Our numbers went down by a few.
Can you talk a little louder?
Sure. I know Jules a wonderful projector. And so when
That's just a nice way of saying I'm very loud, I know that.
It's because you're theater bound, I get it. Special ed, our special ed numbers overall have gone down a few, not many. Our numbers continue to be about 18 to 24 in terms of case manager caseload still, so it hasn't gone down. And honestly, it's fluctuating within about 5 pretty regularly. So their caseloads are still on the higher end. In communicating with other districts, that number is in line with what other districts are seeing, not necessarily higher, which is not, I mean, it's good to hear, but also it speaks to a trend that I think is a little bit alarming and maybe not so sustainable. We met with our Medicaid to Schools billing rep. He helped us recognize a few areas that were blocked. So we're working to release those blocks, which is very easy to do. So we should see more money coming in terms of Medicaid. We've set up I believe it's a bi-weekly meeting with him to just stay on top of Medicaid because the laws change so regularly. In terms of little things, there were a few things I wasn't even aware of, but he's on top of all that. He comes in, he helps. So that's a wonderful resource. I have a lot of things going on with the DOE right now in terms of indicators and indicator monitorings that I'll be working on. That's pretty much the highlight. Yeah. Budget season is coming. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we can't wait.
I have to put that at the end. I look forward to budget season.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Rebecca? And Rebecca, we'll give you a heads up. We already told City Council they can expect an increase in special education. So, it's not gonna be a surprise to them, so we've been already talking.
Yeah.
All right, so no questions for Rebecca? All right, excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, we'll move on to our Paul Smith School with Sue. Good evening, Sue, again.
Good evening, everyone. So I have to express my frustration in all these spaces in my report because that's not how I sent it. But anyway, my apologies for whatever happened to it. So as you can see, our population is pretty steady, which is a delight. And starting in January, I will give you our flux as far as numbers in and numbers out. Really hasn't been substantial, so I have not been reporting that. I do want to recognize Jamie Gregg. So we talk a lot about curriculum and curriculum choices and consistency from Paul Smith School to the middle school and working together and having common language and common strategies. We adopted responsive classroom long before I came to the district, but one of the things we have done is reinstituted the strategies and some of the programs associated with the Center for a Responsive Classroom. And one of those things was the adoption of Fly 5, which through the support of Barb Slayton, we were able to purchase resources that really reinforce character traits for our students. And it actually, I believe, goes up to 5th or 6th grade. And I know that I have sent the 4th and 5th grade curriculum over to the middle school. But I want to recognize Jamie Gregg because she has been asked by the Center for a Responsive Classroom to be an ambassador. There are 10 ambassadors that are chosen throughout the United States of America, and Jamie will be one of those ambassadors who several times throughout the year will get together. Everything is funded through the Center for Responsive Classroom, and we'll be working on reinforcing and strengthening Fly 5 and the strategies and structures that are promoted through the Center for Responsive Classroom. Our morning circle time is a simple idea of something that was started by Responsive Classroom is morning circle time or morning center time. And then there are all the character traits that we reinforce with our children throughout the days and the weeks of school. I need to recognize the police department. for their support with our parade. If you didn't get to see it, it was pretty awesome this year because we actually went down the middle of Daniel Webster Drive, and our parents were pretty excited about it. If you ever pop 300 bags of popcorn, come join me some Friday. On the first and the third Friday of every month, I start at about 6 o'clock in the morning and I pop popcorn for our kids. This is something we haven't done for almost 2 years because of COVID. And our kids are just thrilled. We have families purchasing, it's only 25 cents, but purchasing bags of popcorn for classrooms, and we're very excited about that. I know there's a lot of discussion about what we do during Veterans Day and Memorial Day and how we celebrate all of the wonderful people who have sacrificed in some way. And so I tried to give you an overview of some of the great things we do. I did want to stop and just mention something that I don't have in my report that's pretty fascinating, which I learned about last week. We had our PTA meeting last Wednesday night, and I want to recognize my families because my family sold over $20,000 worth of Cherry Dale items. And how that translates to Paul Smith School is we actually had a fundraiser that raised about $7,500 for our school. And the PTA, in the era of doing field trips and paying for gas and things like that, would do that. And this year, through our Polar Express performance, we are going to be fortunate to do something very special for our children. As a result of what I consider extraordinary fundraising. We've never raised $5,000, never mind $7,500. So I just want to recognize that's my families that did that, and that's pretty substantial. So I want to thank them at this time. So I think the rest of my report is pretty self-explanatory. Our preschool, if you get a chance and you want to come over and see our preschool in action, please feel free. They're the only day that they don't operate is on Fridays, but it's a pretty phenomenal thing to see, and I think you'd enjoy it. So that's an open invitation throughout the year. Please join us. And as you can see, we're really excited because we've got our book fair coming back when we come back from Thanksgiving. And we plan on doing our Polar Express for all of our kids. And a lot of them haven't had that opportunity, so we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Any questions for Sue?
Yes?
Maureen?
What is the Polar Express?
It is our own
Great thing.
rendition of the book, The Polar Express. Have you ever read the story, The Polar Express? So, I can't tell you how it started, but it actually is like a mini play of the Polar Express, except all of Paul Smith's children are included. So the night before, we laid railroad tracks throughout the building. We set up our 3 houses as train cars, and through the talent of Tim Hazelton, he sets up a sound system. We have the train whistle going, and we tell the story, and where the children end up is in the gym, which is actually the North Pole, and very well decorated too. So it's pretty phenomenal, and we have a child receive the first gift of Christmas, so it's a really cool thing. You're welcome to join us. Yeah, you're welcome to join us.
So we look for you connected and everything?
Yeah. You just have to make sure you wear a mask, and
I will.
our conductors will have to wear masks this year. Yes.
Not a problem.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Now we'll move on to our, I'm sorry, Deb.
Deb?
The fundraiser, is that money raised through the PTSA?
PTA, yeah. Yeah. So we just finished one with Reese. I don't know how much we made on the, we do something through 3 Rivers here in Franklin. And this Saturday, everyone came and picked up their Reese. But Cherry Dale is our main fundraiser, which supports a lot of the things we do at Paul Smith School. It's a very small population of people, 5 people But it is amazing what our school population does and how they turn out.
Any other questions? No, assistant.
Yeah, that's what that was on the hot seat.
You have one more for you, Ken.
I know.
All right, gonna move on to the assistant purchase report from Nicole.
Good evening. It has been a wonderful, wonderful beginning of the school year. Feels like we're starting to finally catch steam. Our students are beginning to be quite adjusted to our daily routines and develop an understanding of what school rules and expectations are within their classroom and other parts of our building. Our focus will continue to be teaching children the skills and providing them support to help them make appropriate choices. During the month of November, we had about a dozen reported minor behaviors, including task avoidance, class disruption, and non-compliance. There were 34 reported major behaviors, including physical contact, out of assigned area, which was typically refusal to leave the playground, classroom destruction, excessive non-compliance, and spitting. These incidents all result in parent communication or time away from the classroom. On a positive note, our Caught Doing Good program continues to be the highlight of our school. Our children love being caught doing good. On November 8th, we had our October Caught Doing Good assembly, and we celebrated 333 acts of kindness. And currently right now, our hallway bulletin boards are decorated with 231 turkeys. I had a student help me count this morning, representing times that children were caught doing good.
Really cool. Are there any questions for Nicole? Thank you, Nicole. All right, we're gonna move on to our middle school report with Ken.
Thank you. I'm glad that we have these electronically because I've never made an 18-page principal's report before, but there's a lot of really important information. I hope they have a chance to look at it. First, though, what I normally do is I do an analysis of our enrollment, and I didn't do it in writing, so I'll just give you a quick and dirty analysis. At the end, last month's report, in January we had 364 students. Here it is November, we have 362 students. We have not changed by 2 students. We have unenrolled 36 students, which means what the net result is we've enrolled 34 new students since the beginning of the school year, giving a total enrollment change of 70 students. Out of 400, when you add the whole mass of the ins and the outs, that's about a 17.5% fluctuation of our student population just in this first 1/3 of the year. We're at the 56th day of the year, school year. And that's good, we're doing fine. We're glad to have them come and sad to see them go. We're really getting down to the academics. Progress reports have gone out. Term 1 progress reports, because we're already in term 2 for Allied Arts. Our trimester progress reports for academics have already gone out because the first trimester ends on 9th of December. In all cases, the teachers got this feedback for students in a timely manner so that we can let them know how they're doing, so they can find ways to improve before the grades close. And then, of course, the thing that I wanted to make the highlight of this is the time that we're spending voluntarily on the interim statewide assessments. We take them at Franklin Middle School because we choose to do them for our own. It's not because the state mandates them, as they did last fall, you may remember. They made us do it twice, not just once. So what I've done is I've shown you some of the information that each members of our staff is able to get. Like all of this that I get is because I'm a school coordinator. Every teacher in our school is a school coordinator, and the reason is because they have access to information. The first thing is, we've so far, as you can see in math and ELA, we haven't done the whole school yet. Our commitment is to have it done by the end of this week, actually. So you can see about 203 students have finished our math test as of this, and about 181 students have finished the, 308 and 251, I was looking at the wrong place. And you can see, just quickly on the first page, that we have completed some science reports. Now, yes, I will tell you, if you look at these, there's a lot of red, okay? Just like Susan has said, just like we admitted, there's a lot of red on this. This is not designed for us to assess student performance in our teaching. It's to individualize instruction. So the thing to look at, when we look at the first page, which is our math, is that some of our math has very little read, some of it has more. So those are students we need to work more with. And for each one of these bars, we can do the same exact thing for each and every student who's taken the test, okay? So that's the first few pages that talks about our math, interim math scores. And as you can see, it's by groups. Each teacher can either look at their whole grade, their whole team. As you know, we're divided into 4 sections. The middle school, Winnie and Pemmy, and the prep school, Winnie and Pemmy. So we're divided into 4 teams, okay? So that's the first section. The next page that I want to show you is what's called page 2, which says measurement, data, and geometry at the top. The next page says numbers, operations, and base 10. The next one says operations and algebraic thinking. The reason I want to bring that to your attention is that it says that our teachers can not only see how our kids are doing overall in math, but they can break it down into different sections of math. So for example, in operations and algebraic thinking, there's a lot less red than there is in measurement, data, and geometry. That tells our teachers they should spend more time on that and less time on this. Okay? Turning the pages to reporting on English language arts. Same kind of things are available. Our teachers can look at gross performance of our students by class, by grade, by roster, however they want to break it down. So they can individualize their teaching by students, by grades, by skills. Turning to the next page. Make sure the numbers are better. You'll see they break down the same way in the reading and writing scores. Language standards, reading standards for informational text, reading standards for literature. I'm going to run out of my pages. Other language standards. And again, it's the same thing where you see there are different amounts of red and non-red in each of them, so our teachers can individualize their reading and language informational tests. There's not much red at all, okay? So I don't need to do the whole thing, but I just want to show you, this is the data they can look at. And then last but not least, the last 2 pages are spreadsheets. The last 2 pages are spreadsheets. They're Excel spreadsheets, which means that a teacher can literally rank our kids alphabetically, so they can find the kid in their scores. They can rank them by lowest to highest, so we decide who's eligible for Title I services. We can find out who our neediest kids are, because it ranks them. And then the same thing is available to rank them by skills. So in math, they have ratios and proportions, geometry, statistics, and number system. And in English language arts, they have reading standards for informational, literature, listening, writing standards, argumentative, and evidence and organization. So anyhow, these are some of the data that they're able to get. The purpose of this is not to have you analyze the data, it's to have you realize how much data we have available to analyze so that we can drive instruction and individualize by groups of kids or by individual kids to provide them with what they need based on the data we've gathered. So, thank you for the time. Oh, questions?
Questions for Ken? Thanks, Ken.
And this is a preparation to say that I'm going to, once we finish the testing, I'm going to prepare this, some whole school data on how our performance is on reading, writing, and English language arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
All right.
All right, back.
All right, now we'll move on to our assistant principal's report from the middle school, so I'll turn it over to Jay.
All right, good evening. At this point, this past month has been somewhat eventful. We have a number of minors, which is, really kind of getting the teachers to still kind of force that accountability in their classroom. That's why our minors are jumping up, which is, it's a good way to kind of remind them the order of the way we keep things. The majors, we had 62, a little bit above the elementary school. Hey, we're jumping on you. 62, resulting in approximately a total of 25 days of in-school suspension, which we're still using as a means of educating the students, not only with keeping their education going, but to also help work on social skills and help them understand what they've done and kind of restore some of the restore some of the justice that we need there. Out of school is still down, which is good. It's a total of 6 days in the last month, which actually is only split between 2 people, so it's doing all right there. Overall, the big things are still, physical aggression, disrespect, and out of area. Ours isn't so much recess area, but I will say we do have 1 or 2 kids who have to argue to get them back in from recess. And that's where we're at.
All right, thank you, Jay. Any questions for Jay? It's disciplinary report. All right, thank you, Jay. All right, we'll move on to our high school principals report. We'll Carrie, good evening, Carrie.
Good evening. So October, we had at the end of October, it was manufacturing month in October, so I just wanted to point out that we were able to take 6 small groups over to Watts over the course of 2 days. And I did do a recognition to Mike LeVay for Watts for letting us come. It was wonderful because we had a lot of staff that are teaching the manufacturing classes this year, and a lot of staff were able to attend and help chaperone. So it was wonderful that the kids were able to go over, and even Superintendent Legallo and Tim got to go over on trips too, which was nice. We've had a lot of college activity on campus, a lot of different things with Portrait of the Graduate. So on the 2nd, we had a college fair here on campus. And then we also were able to attend a college and career fair over at Winnisquam High School. They invited us and a couple of other high schools too, so we took some buses using Gear Up money and were able to go over and have those students participate in that. We celebrated our I Apply Day, so that's where the students, the seniors get together and they apply online for college, like right then and there. We had 20 students participate this year. And I wrote down for the board's piece so that they know, Emily Holt is the one who was the recipient for the $500 scholarship, and Megan Donahue was the winner of the college dorm room setup kit that was new this year that they did that for I Applied Day. I really want to talk about the play, the Matilda play that was done. I've been in the district a long time. It's my 20th year. I used to be on stage with the kids too. It's been a while since I've done that, but I was able to have a sneak peek of the play at their rehearsal on Tuesday. And I've seen a lot of plays, and the kids, in the amount of time in the 6 weeks that they had, and the staff members who participated, I actually forgot that I was in the theater. You felt like you were there, and Jewel gave me an opportunity to say that to the actors on stage, and anybody that got a chance to go, I was in awe about even the digital background and how that was changing when the kids were speaking and everything was lined up and the swings. It was magical, Jewel, and like I've seen a lot, but this one really so I'm glad if people got a chance to go see it. It was amazing. And I just wanted to point out too, because I don't know if the board is aware, but Travis Follensby, our daytime custodian, was the 2021 recipient of the Andy Phelps Commitment Award. That award is given by, it's recognized from so students and parents and community partners select that recipient. So we're really honored, and Travis is on our school website under Spotlight, but I just wanted to make note that he was recognized as the recipient for that, in case not everybody knew.
Any questions for Carrie? Thank you, Carrie. Now we'll move on to our assistant principal's report with Tim. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening. Thank you, Jay. I just want to say, you make me feel good about my job here at the high school. We only had 34 majors here in the last month. However, 12 of those did take place in the last 2 days, so we've been really busy recently. So of those 34 majors, 2/3 of them broke up into disrespect towards staff, swearing at staff, leaving of school grounds, and then the most popular major offense was 9 students were caught vaping in the last 30 days. So that is all that I have to report this evening.
Any questions for Tim? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our last one, our facilities director, facilities report with Dan Clark.
Good evening. Let the board know the elevated walkway at the middle school is 99.9% complete. We're waiting for the masons, a few bricks to put in place, but it has been inspected by the state and by the city fire marshal, and everything's been approved. So as soon as the mason gets done here, we'll figure in the next 2 weeks, the fence will be grown down and we'll be back open, so the school will be accessible to use for the winter months. We have a fire inspection at the high school tomorrow. Then beginning of December, the middle of December, we're moving out of Paul Smith School in the middle school for the yearly fire inspections. I have backflow valve inspections in all 3 schools set up for the 29th and 30th of this month. And I have the maintenance position is still available. We have not hired anybody. We have received applications. We have done interviews, and unfortunately we can't meet the criteria of the pay that they're looking for at this time. A lot of them are coming out of factories or the foundries, and they're paying a lot more monies than we can get them at. So unfortunately, we can't use them. But there are applicants. We are still doing interviews. So hopefully, we can get that position filled.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any questions for Dan? All right, thank you, Dan. All right, that will close our reports from our administrators. To the administrators leaving, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your time. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is our policy agenda portion. We have no second readings this evening. We have first readings. For just first reading, motion to accept for first reading. I will go over the 6 of them. I just need a motion for first reading only. And it is policy BEC, non-public sessions, BEDG, meeting minutes, DAF, grant management, IB, academic freedom, IHBG, home education, JICA, student dress code. I just need a motion for first reading.
To accept the policy special agenda for first reading.
Second.
Motion been made by Delaney to accept for first reading as presented, second by Cecile. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Discussion?
The primary one is the homeschooling. I mentioned earlier, but I was talking to Delaney and you and Dan in the meeting room. The homeschooling. What is not clear in this policy, nor is it clear in many other school policies, that once the student, parents, make a request for homeschooling, they only need to give name, rank, and serial number, date of birth, etc. And once they leave the district, once they leave us as a participating district, the district has no control over that student whatsoever. I would like to see a clear statement. I belong onto the group of the New Hampshire Granite State Home Educators, and this comes up consistently, and I and others correct them. Nashua is one of the biggest offenders, along with Windham and Timberlane, trying to extend their tentacles into homeschooling. Once again, once a student leaves the district, if they choose Franklin as a participating district, state of New Hampshire, or another private school, this district has no control over that student. The way the policy reads is, yes, if they come back and they need district help, then the district can ask for certain items. Some of the items that are being requested exceed the state RSAs and the education and the DOE regulations. I would like to see a firm statement in there. Everything stays as written, but in a bold statement, whether it's another addition or a clear statement that says, once the student leaves, the school district has absolutely no control over them. We would probably be the first to have that as a notice in the homeschool policy.
Okay, so I would say that you send that information of what you would like to see in there to the superintendent, and when we will review that at our next budget or our next policy meeting. But obviously, that is something that can be put in there, and
we can bring it back before the board, and if the board wants to approve it in the second reading and approval, then that'll stay in there. If the board elects not to, then obviously we know the route that it'll fail then.
Well, it'll fail, but there's no reason for our school district to be handing out insufficient information, inadequate information. This question is asked on the homeschool educators, one right after another daily. And it's a mixture of, there's 40-some-odd thousand individuals on this group. Half are liberals, half are conservatives. So it's not just a conservative group, it's an equal mix. And I think we can do a great service by making it clear that the school board does not have any reach onto a homeschooling student unless they, one, ask for an assessment, want to participate in extracurricular educational activities or sports activities, which is pretty much defined by the RSA straight out anyway. Thank you.
Send that note to the superintendent.
I will.
Thank you. Okay. So the motion's been made, Paul's made a statement, he's been advised that he'll need to send that to the superintendent, and we can add that to it and be voted on at the next board meeting. So these policy agenda items are always for first reading. This motion's been made, seconded. Any further discussion?
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Deb.
These policies that are coming forward, how do we know what the current policy is and what's being changed? Because these are saying that it was reviewed, like, I'll just use the home education since that's where we're at. Reviewed in 2016, revised in 13, 19, and December 2021, which isn't even here yet.
Well, that's when the second.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, but
So
is this, where do I find the current policy? I mean, are we gonna get copies of the current policies? Or are they gonna be the current policy with the strikeouts and what the new language is? That's my question. I mean, how would we know if there were changes made to these first readings?
So you can see the current policies on the website. Everything that's on the website is the current, what we're going under. What you get in your board upload from the policy committee is what they've already looked at both policies together, our current policy and the New Hampshire School Board Association's recommended, once it's gone through their whole legal process, they look at both of those. And then they decide if they're gonna completely take the New Hampshire School Board Association. Sometimes they take parts of each. There's a big discussion that goes on at the policy committee level where they go through all that, what to take out, what to put in, what is recommended by the New Hampshire School Board Association's attorneys. Sometimes we go back to the New Hampshire School Board and ask questions, and it comes back on the agenda later. So you, as a board member, could compare what we're providing from the policy committee level to the change that we want to the current one. But there's nothing that we produce that shows the strikeouts or anything. I know what you're talking about, but we don't produce anything.
Do you want us to put the existing ones in the folder so you
Well,
can
that's,
compare?
I think that it would be helpful when, on the agenda, if it was somehow documented, if it's a full, taking the full NHSBA policy, or if there are changes, then you would want to have what those changes are, maybe in a cover sheet or something.
So you would
that,
like to see what the policy committee sees, or because you can also read the policy committee minutes, which basically summarizes the discussion they had and why they took different things and what changes were made. But however you decide you want the information disseminated to the full board.
I work with this stuff all the time.
I know.
That's why it's sometimes confusing for me, because I think if we had these policies and then we had a cover sheet that said, BEC policy, current, no changes. The next policy, BEDG,
But if it's current, no changes, it won't come back. It won't even come,
Just gets reviewed and.
just review.
okay, so we just have to have some inclination
So let me work
of
with
what's
Colleen on
being,
that.
what's being changed.
I think we won't solve it here, but I think one of the
No.
solutions is to send you both, so you know what the existing one is,
Yeah.
and then what the changes are that are being proposed. I think that's what you're asking.
Because I mean, I have the policy book at home, but it's so outdated that, you know, even going to the website, am I sure that that's the current policy? You know?
We'll work on that together.
I can tell you right now, it's the current ones.
Maureen?
Just a point that I would like maybe to speak to your question, Paul. One of the things is that in the current voucher system, which is the Educational Freedom Account, anyone who opts for homeschooling and applies for the money, from what I understand, that there's no accountability. They don't, there's nothing that checks what there's no checks as to curriculum being, what curriculum that they're using.
That's been defined by the state law, that the school board has no input on what they have for a curriculum, and we can't make a policy that overrides state law.
Exactly, so what is your question when you ask? So I guess I'm confused with the question that you were implying.
Oh,
according to what we have as policy, I mean, how does that?
Well, a homeschooling policy is needed. Some of the school districts have way overreached on their school policy for homeschooling. The biggest offenders, Timberlane, Nashua, and Wyndham, they have overreached. Parents that are homeschooling think, some parents, until they get the correct information, they think that they still need to report to the school district when they send out mailings. What is not clear in this policy is once a parent goes to homeschooling with their children, the school board has no reach, period. They cannot regulate curriculum, they cannot review curriculum. There are separate states for extracurricular activities, or if they wish to come in for a certain class, then the school board can ask that, is the student up to speed to take calculus? But the school board, the school district, has no jurisdiction over a homeschooler. That's in the RSAs, and until the RSAs are changed, the school board, school district has no jurisdiction over a homeschool student.
And so what are you suggesting we do?
I am suggesting that we make a statement that is much clearer, that says once a student leaves the school system, the school district has no longer has any control over that student, nor the parent. I don't think vouchers apply to homeschooling anyway. They do? Wow. Yeah. Doesn't matter. School district does not have a right to review curriculum.
Okay, we're just sort of mincing words here, but I just think that there is, you know, according to what currently is for the Education Freedom Account, that there is no accountability.
Well, and we can't
There's
make,
no accountability, period.
and we can't make it accountable. We do
So
not
I
have-
don't know why what we have in the policy conflicts with what's being here, but I'll
Clarity.
bring this up.
Some clarity. It lacks clarity. And we can do better and offer clarity. We need not continue to offer minimal standards of clarity and minutes.
Minutes? How does minutes get into this?
Earlier discussion.
It's an opinion statement.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Nope, it's fine, just an opinion statement.
Well, it's an opinion statement, but the school board does not have jurisdiction over a homeschooled student, their parents, family, etc. End of it.
I think also we should say that once they leave, the school district does not have the responsibility of their education.
Well, that's perfect. That'd be even better, yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Any other discussion on the first reading of the policies? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Now, there is a late item, there's no withdrawals, you said there's a late item?
I have
Okay, go ahead.
So after we published the agenda, I received an email from the Andover School Board Vice Chair. It says, "Good morning, Superintendent Legal. As you may recall, the Andover School Board was scheduled to hold a public meeting at the end of October to share the preliminary tuition agreement research we gathered this fall. We did in fact hold that meeting and had a very productive back and forth with members of the Andover community. After that meeting, the board deliberated about the next steps in our tuition agreement process. One of the outcomes of that meeting was the decision to not move forward with formal discussions about a future tuition agreement with SAU 18. Thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciated our conversation and learning about SAU 18. Adam Jones, ASB Vice Chair."
I knew that before we got the letter.
Is there any other late items to be brought before the board? Okay. There is no public participation, and we will not have agenda item 12. There is no public personnel within our school board meeting, so we'll close that. Superintendent Legal, do we have a non-public at all?
We do not.
Agenda item 13 is closed. Motion to adjourn has been made by Deb. Do I have a second? By Maureen. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned.